am curious, over the next 6 months to a year, how much of a challenge will affordability remain for people that, want to heat their homes, want to buy a home, want to be able to pay their rent, want to be able to buy a new car?
Well, Joe, there's a lot there to unpack. A lot of the home heating costs are actually driven by states. I found it very interesting the other day when the governor-elect of New Jersey said the first thing she's going to do is bring down energy costs. Well, Phil Murphy did a terrible job, and energy costs are high because of the choices he made over the past few years. Same for New York State. New York State refuses to put in these natural gas pipelines. There's an abundance of energy next door in Pennsylvania. You could bring down New York State energy costs just by putting in these pipelines. So part of it's a choice. But when you ask over the next 6 or 12 months, there are two parts to affordability. There's the price level, and we inherited a mess. It was the worst inflation 40 or 50 years. And I think what the president was very frustrated about is, you said everyone started talking about it, that after he took office, like where was the discussion during Joe Biden? Because during the Biden era, it was complete gaslighting. There was a vibe session. Steve Ratner, who you just had on, wrote a column basically saying, like, Americans don't know how good they had it. This is, you just don't understand, but the American people know what they're feeling. And what I expect over the next 6 and 12 months, as I said, there are two ways to address affordability. You stop the prices from going up, you get inflation under control, you have things like energy, mortgages come down. The other side is you get real working class wages up.
Boy. We got to talk about this excellent interview featuring Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and an MSNBC panel that decided to ambush him with gotcha questions, because everybody right now is talking about affordability. As I talked about yesterday, the real issue with the affordability crisis is the fact that people aren't patient, right? They aren't patient, and they're not allowing President Trump's supply side stimulus to take effect and to help with the cost of living, right? It takes time for people to feel the benefits of tax cuts. It takes time for people to feel the benefits of deregulation, of business investment, of the things that the president is trying to do. Okay, it's not going to happen in 8 months, 9 months. The president has been in office for about that long. The big, beautiful bill was passed in July, right? So it's been about 3 or 4 months since his main economic agenda was passed. But again, people are already trying to pass judgment on the president's economy, even though it's not his economy, it's Biden's economy, and things take time. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed in 2017, and when people talk about President Trump's economy back then, everybody talks about 2019. It took 2 years, right? 2 years for people to actually really start to get the benefits of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and it was a great piece of legislation. I don't care how much Democrats and leftists try to poo-poo it. That bill worked out great for everybody, for the country, okay? And I have no reason to believe that this administration, the current administration, is not going to have similar results moving forward into the future. But the reality is that the perception of inflation, of wages, of costs in this country, it's going to take time for this to be fixed psychologically. The problem is that people are just not used to the fact that we're going to have to live with the fact that prices have went up, and that it's going to take time for people to adjust, for wages to adjust, which is what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent did an amazing job of explaining during this ambush on MSDNC. Take a look.
But other things, as you noted, have gone up. Beef, coffee,
they're gonna come
auto
down very
repairs.
shortly.
Is this a voter perception issue of the economy, or is there more that needs to be done by Republicans on Capitol Hill, or done in terms of policy?
More than anything else, it's a con job by the Democrats. They're saying, they just have to say, they put out something, say today costs are up. They feed it to the anchors of ABC, CBS, and NBC, and a lot of other, and CNN, and et cetera. And it's like a standard. I'll never forget, they had used a word like manufactured. Do you remember the word manufactured? It's a manufactured economy. Nobody uses that word. Every Anchor broke the manufacture. They do exactly what they say. It's such a rigged system. So are you ready? Costs are way down. Gasoline is going to be hitting $2 pretty soon, or around $2. Gasoline is at $2.70 now.
It's just over $3 right now. So, Mr. Secretary, it's not news anchors at NBC saying it. It's the voters a week ago saying life is too expensive in this country. So do you believe the idea that voters are saying affordability is a problem for me is a con job?
I believe even this morning you had two people come on and say, well, I look at the price at the pump and I know costs are up. Well, gasoline's down. So that is a con job. And I think that's what's frustrating.
So you don't believe that all the people who went to vote last Tuesday on the issue of affordability, my rent's too high, I can't afford to buy a house, groceries are too expensive, you think they're just misperceiving what's happening in their lives?
I think that that we inherited an affordability crisis. We have slowed the price increases down, and they are going to continue to slow down, and that real working class wages will go up, and that will address the affordability issue. And I think this is what Democrats are afraid to do. They've gone to the courts to try to stop President Trump and this great economy. That hasn't worked. They get overruled at SCOTUS. We go to the media, who carries their water. That hasn't worked, so they shut down the government and hurt the economy. Let's keep the economy open, let our policies kick in, and let's see if what I just talked about, let's see if those two lines cross. Costs come down, real wages go up, and then we can have an election next November.
You can blame the media. I understand that's part of your job, but let's talk about voters who are saying life is too expensive. Not just talking about Democrats in New York City who might have voted for Mayor-elect Mamdani, ranchers, Republicans in red states saying things are too expensive. What do you say to them? Not that it's a con job that they feel like life is too expensive, but that it's a reality of their lives.
I say that there are many aspects of affordability that have gotten better under President Trump. They're going to continue to get better. I mean, unbelievably, Bloomberg had an article yesterday that said, oh, mortgage rates aren't down that much. Well, on Inauguration Day, a 30-year mortgage was 7.8%. Yesterday it was 6.22%. That is the single biggest component of buying a new home. And that is a gigantic drop. But it said, oh, they're just down slightly.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. I really do. Right? He kind of reminds me of like the Southern grandpa who is like always calm, right? He's never emotional about things. Like he's always just kind of like even keel, right? He makes you feel good, right? He makes you feel like things are going to be okay. Now, apparently, behind the scenes, he got some serious hands, right? Apparently, he can fight, okay? He can fight.
Elon Musk was a little bit of a thorn in the side, I think, for a few of the cabinet members, including you. And I asked President Trump about the famous stoush between you and Elon Musk, where there was a shouting match outside his office, and Elon Musk reportedly shoved you. Is that true?
We have had disagreements, but we both want to get to the same place. We both want to eliminate the waste, fraud, and abuse in government. The Silicon Valley mode of operation is move quickly and break things. I always say here at Treasury, we move deliberately and fix things. I think Elon's probably fancies himself more of a Viking. I think I'm more of a ninja. Goes through the submarine surfaces, fires, goes back under. And look, everybody's very passionate about doing the best job for President Trump and the American people.
Which, I'm not surprised, right? A gay dude growing up in the South. I mean, I guess you kind of got to know how to fight, right? But yeah, I mean, what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is explaining is the same exact thing that I was explaining to you guys yesterday during my video about the stimulus checks, in which people got to understand that at this moment in time, okay, people are not used to the fact that prices have went up, okay? Prices have increased more than any period of time, at least in which I've been alive, right? So a lot of people have never experienced this before. So it's going to take time for people to get used to the fact that, hey, yes, prices are elevated and that they're going up, but they're not going up nearly as fast as they were going up before, right? That is an objective fact, okay? The key is that real wages, which means wages adjusted for inflation, have to catch up with the inflation that we experienced over the past 5 years. Okay? That takes time. That takes time. So I think that's why people are feeling the way that they're feeling. It is a real reality. It is something that, people are struggling. But people got to understand that it's going to take time and that things don't happen overnight, right? And that is the reality of the situation that we're in right now. And again, I think that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just does a great job of explaining this. And that's why I'm reacting to this clip. He also did a great job of explaining that we did not bail out Argentina, right? That we were not just giving out money to another country, a foreign country, to bail them out, because that's been another talking point that the Democrats and the mainstream liberal media have been using, because, again, they're trying to take advantage of people's ignorance. They're trying to take advantage of the fact that, yeah, a lot of people don't really understand how these financial transactions work. And he did an amazing job, absolutely amazing job, a fatality moment, right, on MSNBC, doing, again, this ambush in which they're going to try to get him with a gotcha question on that topic. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Let's talk about the piling on effect right now and some of the challenges that you're going to face, the president's going to face, anybody in office is going to face about affordability. So if inflation went up, let's say 9% under Joe Biden, it came down to 3%, right? And let's say it's still kind of chugging along at 2 or 3% right now. The problem is people are comparing today with what they were paying in 2019. And so people may say they want prices to plummet and go down, but actually the challenge there is the last thing you want is deflation. So how do you explain that even if you slow down inflation to, let's say, 2%, 1.5%, 2%, which would be great, Americans are still going to look back and think of the good old days before COVID, before inflation, before all of these things hit. You know what I'm saying? There's going to always be sort of this stacking price. Things are always going to be more expensive unless you have deflation, but it's the last thing you want, right?
Yeah. So what Joe Scarborough here is outlining is exactly what I was outlining yesterday, which is the psychological effect of the fact that, yes, we went through the great inflation under Joe Biden. And because of that, people have to understand that, hey, we're not going back to 2019 price levels. That's not how it works. What you actually pay attention to is your purchasing power, real wage growth. Can you buy more stuff with the money that you have? Okay, even if the sticker price is higher, if you can actually purchase more of it because of wage growth, then that means you've gotten richer, right? Even though, again, the sticker price is higher, if you can buy more of it, again, from wage growth, then you've gotten richer, right? You're better off. Psychologically speaking, it's going to take time for that to happen because real wage growth has not caught up with the fact that we experienced the great inflation under Joe Biden, in which real wage growth went down. So that's what we have to deal with. That is what President Trump inherited. It's tough, right? It's a very tough thing to deal with because, as Joe Scarborough also laid out, we can have deflation, but deflation comes with a cost, right? Deflation comes with the cost of jobs, business investment, growth. Yeah, we can do it. We can bring down prices, but people aren't going to like it. It's not going to be all rainbows and roses, right? So that's what people got to understand.
Well, Joe, you can have disinflation and you can have some goods deflating. We want energy prices to deflate.
Right.
I think there's some food items that can deflate, but as I said before, with the affordability, there are two components. There's price, and then there's real wage gains. And Americans are going to look back and think that under President Trump's first term, they saw very substantial wage gains, especially for working Americans and the average household. So I think they're going to look back to that. And again, Steve Ratner's charts very conveniently got truncated in 2020 on that.
So, Mr. Secretary, amid this discussion of costs and prices and affordability, how does a $20 billion bailout of Argentina help Americans? You're the president's point person on that. Can you explain to those here who are feeling the pinch, including America's farmers, why the United States is helping out Argentina?
Well, do you know what a swap line is?
It's a currency swap, yes.
Yes, but what is that?
You're the Treasury Secretary.
Yes, but why would you call it a bailout?
That is how.
In most bailouts, you don't make money. The U.S. government made money. We used our financial balance sheet to stabilize the government. One of our great allies in Latin America, during an election, the president there won in a landslide. The government's going to make money, and I would rather use peace through economic strength than have to be shooting at narco boats coming offshore if the government collapsed. We have a generational opportunity in Latin America to create allies. We just saw an election in Bolivia. We're probably going to see an election in Colombia. We've seen them in Ecuador. We're going to see them in Chile. So by stabilizing the economy there and making a profit, then that's a very good deal for the American people. And there's a lot we could have been doing for American farmers, but Democrats closed the government.
So
So before we get into the next question, I just want to say that this was amazing. This was absolutely amazing, because the mainstream liberal media, Democrats, have been running around saying, Trump bailed out Argentina. And it's like, Trump did not bail out Argentina. You guys just don't know what a credit swap is. You don't know what you're talking about. That's the problem with a lot of politics, is that so many people don't know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about anything, okay? But they run around claiming things that, again, they don't know what they're talking about. Let me explain why this is not an actual bailout, okay? A bailout implies that we just give Argentina money and that's it, right? We're not getting anything back. No, that's not how a credit swap works. Basically, it was a currency swap in which we received their pesos, they received dollars. Why do they need dollars? Okay, they need dollars because they don't hold a lot of foreign currency, and they need the dollars in order to keep their economy afloat. And I'm not going to get too complicated in regards to how this works. Just understand that they don't have much liquidity when it comes to their dollars, right? In foreign reserves. So they need dollars in order to keep their economy afloat and stable, at least short term. So they get short-term dollar liquidity. They get some breathing room. Melee, he gets some breathing room for now. This is not actually fixing the problem, right, that Argentina has. It's just providing them with some stability, okay, in order to get by, right? Now, in the meantime, we keep Argentina in our financial orbit. It prevents the Chinese and their bank influence from expanding in South America, which is something we definitely don't want. And the region stays stable, which is what Scott Bessent is laying out. Now, again, what people don't understand is that this is not a bailout, because Argentina is not being forgiven for anything. This is a short-term credit swap. So all you need to understand, this is all you need to understand. Okay, you don't need to get into the details. I don't want to make it too complicated. We're receiving pesos. They receive dollars. It's an open line, so it's not one of those things where they're using it all at one time. They're using it as needed for stability. We make interest off of it, okay? And eventually it will be unwound, right? Eventually they will have to pay us back in dollars, okay? And we will give them the pesos back. That is how it works. Don't worry about all the messy details about the exchange rate and, the currency fluctuation. None of that really matters, right? As far as we're concerned. Argentina is taking a vast majority of the risk, okay? If the peso ends up falling, okay? So yeah, that's essentially what's happening here, okay? Is mainly on Argentina, not us. I wouldn't even consider this to be like a real financial transaction for the United States. There's like a big deal that all these people boohoo whine and cry about. It's more about the geopolitics, right? It's more of a geopolitical move than a financial one when you talk about impact, because the financial impact is like tiny, okay? But the geopolitical impact is much larger. This is a geopolitical move for stabilization and for influence in Latin America rather than a financial transaction in terms of impact, okay? It keeps Argentina afloat because it provides short-term dollar liquidity that they need. They can pay importers. They can make sure that, their country doesn't collapse. But again, MSNBC they rely on people not knowing this stuff, which again, I don't really blame people for not knowing. This is not something that everyday average person is going to know. But that's what they take advantage of. They're taking advantage of people's ignorance on topics like this, calling it a bailout when it's not a bailout. Like, this is not a bailout at all. Okay. It's not a bailout. And it's just so funny because they thought that they could challenge Scott Bessent, who's a legendary investor, right? This is a legendary hedge fund manager. This is the same guy that broke the British pound. They thought that they could challenge him on this type of transaction. Like, come on, right? It was silly. It was silly for this guy to even ask this question. And that's why when Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reversed it back on him, he said, hey, what is a credit swap? Do you even know what you're talking about? This dude was like, oh, well, see, you're the Treasury Secretary. Yeah, but you're calling it a bailout. So if you're calling it a bailout, which again is false, right? It's a false characterization of the transaction. Then yeah, you need to explain why you're calling it a bailout. He's calling it a bailout because the propagandists at his network in the Democrat Party told him to call it a bailout. But again, it's not really a bailout.
How has the United States made money off of this? And you talk about trying to make more regional relationships. The United States is shooting alleged narco boats in international waters off the coast of Venezuela. The United States has not provided evidence yet that those are indeed drug traffickers. So how are these two things working in tandem?
We are preempting the collapse of a government and going back to a Peronist agenda and a left-wing government. What if somebody had raised their hand and said, look at what's happening with Hugo Chavez, look at what's happening with Maduro, and they help the opposition there?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Secretary, I'm just curious, just to clarify, have we made our money back already from the Argentina bailout or the swap line or whatever you call it? Have we made that money back now? Are you saying we're going to make that money back from them over time? Like, what's the payout for that?
Joe, we already have a profit on that swap line.
So have we given them? Did we transfer $20 billion?
No,
and we've already gotten back?
Absolutely not. We made a line of credit available, and a small amount of it was drawn on, and we have made a profit on that.
Yeah. This is hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious to me, right? Because again, this is like, again, a hedge fund manager trying to explain to people who don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? Who are trying to get them with gotchas, right? But they don't know what they're talking about. They're just using talking points to try to get a man who actually does know what he's talking about, right? Especially on this topic, right? This guy knows way more than everybody on that panel combined on this topic. And they're struggling, right? They're struggling to even understand the basics of what he's talking about. But yet they're pushing these talking points as if they know what they're talking about, but it becomes clear when they actually get into this real conversation, right? They don't know. They don't know what they're talking about. All they know is, well, the Democrats said it was a bailout. My producers told me it was a bailout. So I guess some people are probably wondering, why is it that Argentina needs this in the first place? I thought that Milei was doing a good job. Well, it's like I've been telling you guys, things take time, right? Change doesn't happen overnight. Milei is doing a good job. It's just that country has been unstable for a long time, and they are continuing to have stability issues, but progress is being made. This is why his party recently won elections, right? Pretty handily, pretty well. And the reason why is because things are getting better. But as things get better, yeah, you're gonna have bumps in the road. You're gonna have, rocky things that are gonna happen. It's not gonna be prosperity immediately, right? That's not how it works. So I hope people understand that, right? This segment here was pretty great, right? I think that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he schooled these guys. Hopefully they learned something, right, that they didn't know coming into this, because they definitely thought that they would get him. And he set them straight. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.